Mr. Ball.
On the resolution?
On the resolution.
There are a few points here that I feel compelled to address. But I would like it to be placed on the record. I think that in life you're given choices, you're given opportunities. As a legislature, we're given opportunities. Now, there's no doubt that we live in a nation that has a flawed immigration policy. We have an immigration policy in the United States of America that forces approximately 6 to 7 million people to wait in line for an average of 5 to 8 years. Those individuals are forced into a bureaucratic nightmare, many times separated from their families, and they go through the process legally to become an American citizen. And really, we should be, as a legislature and as a nation, we should be finding ways that we can embrace legal immigration with open arms. That's really what we should do. We should be opening up the processes to those individuals who want to come here legally, learn the American language, begin paying taxes, become American citizens, and not make it harder but make it easier. But that's not what we're doing today. And simultaneously, while those 6 to 7 million people wait in line, we facilitate, in some instances actually create open loopholes to allow nearly 1 million illegal aliens to cross the border every single year. Not the border, the borders. The southern border, the northern border, into our ports, because we live in a world where JetBlue exists. So we have 1 million illegal aliens who are allowed to come into this nation without a criminal background check, without a medical background check, and they come into this nation and they're welcomed with open arms into indentured servitude. Because by the very definition of their existence, they are in a country illegally. They break this nation's laws to come here, yes, in many instances, seeking a better life for their families, for their children, for the future, and for themselves. All laudable goals. But they did that by breaking the laws of this nation. And those dots on the map are not just dots on a map that the history teacher draws up on the wall with chalk. Those dots were put on this nation's wall, on this nation's borders by the blood, the sweat, and the tears of American servicemen, and by our very history. The definition of this nation, Mexico, Cuba, the United States, China, North Korea, we have to define those boundaries. And we have a process that forces 6 or 7 million people, 6 to 7 million people to wait in line, while 1 million people cut in front. And that means that over 12, depending upon your estimate, 12 million, 15 million, I believe over 18 million illegal aliens live in this nation in a form of indentured servitude. It's a modern-day black market economy based upon two things, exploitation and greed. I was incorrectly quoted. I'm used to that ever since 5 years of being in politics. Yes, I did indeed say that Democrats view this illegal alien population as future votes, and yes, that's mainly true, in my opinion, as it comes to a policy. But I also said, which wasn't quoted, and of course, because it's got your politics, the part that wasn't quoted is that Republicans view it as cheap labor. And therefore, we have an immigration policy that is being bastardized by the politics of extremes and is fundamentally flawed. Our opportunity today, here, as a legislature, as a thinking body, was to request that the Congress of the United States of America pass comprehensive immigration reform that A, secures the border, but opens up the processes for legal immigration for individuals to come here legally, begin paying taxes, learn the American language, and become American citizens. But we're not doing that because the front page articles will be much sexier to talk about and attack an Arizona law. The reason why Arizona is addressing this issue, or issue, depending upon where you're from, was suggested that it's a wedge issue. And all this stems because all Arizona needed was a wedge issue. Well, I've got to tell you, Arizona is the ground zero of illegal immigration. Phoenix is the hub of human smuggling and kidnapping. There were 240 incidences of human smuggling and kidnapping.
Mr. Gant, why do you rise?
In 2008.
For a question?
Mr. Ball, would you yield for a question from Mr. Gant?
When I'm through with my thought, I absolutely will. I look forward to
Mr.
it.
Gant, you'll have to wait. Thank you.
In my own district, I have had, in Westchester County, Putnam County, there have been crimes committed by criminal illegal aliens. I'm not going to go into detail, but I can tell you that in broad daylight, we had a mother and a daughter who were mowed down by a drunk, criminal, illegal alien. Could they have been killed and mowed down by a drunk New Yorker? Absolutely. But I can tell you that Arizona, being the very epicenter of this illegal alien economy, there are many moms and many dads that no longer have their children. There are many children that no longer have their moms and their dads. Because you have to remember, on that border, there's a fierce war that is being waged that connects back to that illegal economy in Mexico, where that nation, if you read the reports, just a few years back, the drug industry in Mexico was one of the largest employers. And there are thousands of families that have been brought to their knees, that have lost loved ones, because this federal government has failed them. So to suggest that this is some wedge issue is just absolutely, it really doesn't do the argument itself justice. Number two, the issue keeps coming up about slavery. We keep talking about race and we're talking about slavery. I want you to get back to the fundamentals of this issue. To have 18 million illegal aliens living in this country in a modern-day black market economy, where then they can more easily be used and abused by employers. They're misclassified. And they are simply indentured servants in a modern world, and in New York State in some of the wealthiest counties. And some of the very same arguments, even on this floor, were used that said, well, what if somebody has a bad back? So if somebody has a bad back, or if they're busy because they have to take their kids to lacrosse games, does that entitle them to have indentured servants and pay them so little that those individuals have to live 10 or a dozen or 15 to a house that's honeycombed, where there have been fires, where undocumented workers have died in New York State? Does that entitle them to pay individuals $90 a day, $100 a day, pick them up in the back of a truck, throw them a lunch, so their lawns can be manicured and nicer than the neighbors? But those individuals have no health care, limited rights, and zero upward mobility? See, we had an opportunity today to ask that we actually fundamentally change the immigration policy of the United States. What Arizona has been forced to do is not a product of Arizona. Arizona's reaction is simply that. It's a reaction to a failed government policy. There was one last point brought up. A member actually spent a little bit of time in Columbia.
Why do you rise again?
Mr. Ball, yield.
Mr. Ball, do you wish to yield at this point?
I'm on my final point.
In a minute, Mr. Gantt.